Devon Cross had been on Karath Prime for exactly 2 weeks when the message came through. His diplomatic mission was failing. The negotiations with the sovereign kingdom had stalled. Trade agreements hung in limbo, and Earth's council was growing impatient. Devon sat in his quarters within the human embassy compound, reviewing the same data streams repeatedly, searching for some angle he'd missed, some way to break through the cultural impasse that kept both species at arm's length. That's when she arrived, unannounced. The guards didn't stop her, couldn't stop her really, given her status, and suddenly, Devon found himself face to face with Princess Valestra. She was taller than he expected, her skin a deep indigo that seemed to shift in the lamplight, her eyes a startling violet that held depths of intelligence and something else he couldn't quite identify. She wore formal robes embroidered with symbols that likely held meaning he would spend months trying to decipher. "Diplomat Cross," she said, her voice melodious and precise. "I have been authorized to make you an offer regarding our stalled negotiations." Devon gestured to the seat across from his desk, his mind already calculating diplomatic protocols. "I'm honored by your attention, Princess. What is this offer?" Valestra moved with fluid grace, settling into the offered chair. For a moment, she simply studied him, her violet eyes moving across his face, as if she were reading something written in his features. "My people," she began slowly, "require a gesture of good faith between our species, something that transcends mere trade agreements and commercial treaties." "And what gesture would that be?" Devon asked carefully. "A union," Valestra replied, her gaze never wavering. "A bonding between our peoples, formalized through marriage. You are the highest-ranking human representative on our world. Such an alliance would demonstrate Earth's commitment to genuine partnership with Karath." Devon felt his breath catch. "You're proposing marriage?" "Not proposing," Valestra corrected, and something almost like amusement flickered across her features. "Presenting options. Either you will be my husband, cementing the alliance through personal connection, or," she paused, letting the silence stretch, "or you will be exiled from our world immediately, and all diplomatic negotiations will cease permanently. Your species will be branded as unwilling to honor our customs of trust." Devon's mind reeled. "That's not much of a choice." "No," Valestra agreed, tilting her head slightly. "It isn't. But it is the choice you have been given. My people require proof of your sincerity. This is how we measure it." She stood gracefully. "You have until tomorrow's sunset to decide. If you choose marriage, the ceremony will take place within 3 days. If you refuse, you will be escorted to your transport pod and expelled from Karath Prime." As she moved toward the exit, Devon found himself standing, drawn forward by something he couldn't name. "Why would you want this?" he asked urgently. "Why propose marriage to someone you've never met?" Valestra paused at the threshold, turning back to face him. In the soft glow of the embassy lights, her indigo skin seemed to shimmer with its own internal luminescence. "Because for the first time in my life," she said quietly, "I looked at someone and felt something beyond duty. Whether that is enough to sustain a marriage, neither of us can know until we try. But I believe it is worth discovering." And then she was gone, leaving Devon alone with the weight of the impossible choice. His heart racing in a way that had nothing to do with politics, and everything to do with the haunting depths of her violet eyes. He didn't sleep that night. He paced his quarters, reviewed every cultural database available about Kareth mating customs, and wrestled with the fundamental question, was this a diplomatic trap designed to compromise him, or was it a genuine opportunity for something he'd never expected to find? As dawn broke over the desert landscape of Kareth Prime, Devon made his decision. He sent word to the palace that he accepted the terms. Within hours, he received an invitation to the royal chambers for a formal presentation ceremony. When Valestra entered the chamber where he waited, dressed in robes that seemed to be woven from starlight itself, Devon understood with absolute certainty that his decision had been less about diplomacy and more about the electric pull he'd felt from the moment he saw her. Whatever came next, it would be true in ways that transcended politics. The 3 days before the ceremony were consumed by preparations and, surprisingly, by genuine conversation. Valestra herself insisted on overseeing Devon's orientation to Karath customs, which meant they spent hours together, walking through palace gardens where crystalline flowers sang softly in the wind, discussing everything from marriage protocols to personal histories. "On your world," Valestra asked one evening as they stood beneath twin moons that cast everything in silver light, "do marriages not require a period of acquaintance?" "They do," Devon admitted, "though usually people choose each other first and then marry at their leisure. What you call courtship, we call dating. It can take months or even years." Valestra's expression grew thoughtful. "We have compressed that time significantly." "But perhaps," she said, moving closer until her breath was warm against his face, "we can approximate the experience through intensity rather than duration." She began to teach him about her people's customs with patience, and he realized after the first day, obvious affection. Her cultural advisor Nyx, a lean being with silver markings along her midnight skin, facilitated many of these lessons, but often found reasons to leave them alone together. One afternoon, as Valestra showed Devon the ancient temple where the marriage ceremony would take place, she took his hand. Her skin was surprisingly warm, and her fingers were elegant but strong. "Do you fear this?" she asked directly. "Terrified," Devon replied honestly, "but not for the diplomatic reasons you might think." "Then, for what reasons?" Valestra turned to face him fully, her violet eyes searching his, lifted his free hand to gently touch her face, tracing the high curve of her cheekbone. "Because I'm beginning to feel something real," he confessed, "and that's far more dangerous than any political entanglement." Valestra's breathing quickened. She leaned forward until their foreheads touched. A gesture she'd explained to him was profound in her culture, an exchange of thoughts and intentions. "I have felt this danger since the moment you chose to accept my terms," she whispered. "I told myself it was the diplomatic breakthrough we required. But it is much more selfish than that. I wanted you to stay. I wanted to know you. I wanted this." She kissed him then, tentatively at first, and Devon discovered that her lips were soft, responsive, and tasted faintly of the sweet nectar from Kareth flowers. He pulled her close, one hand threading into the elaborate braids of her hair, and she made a sound of pleasure against his mouth. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Devon felt something fundamental shift inside him. "I was thinking," Valestra said, her eyes still closed, "that perhaps the wedding could be moved up. There is no true requirement to wait 3 days. We could be bonded tomorrow." Devon laughed, despite the intensity of the moment. "You're trying to seduce me into commitment? Is it working?" she asked with a hint of what might have been humor. Is it working? Completely, Devon admitted, and kissed her again, deeper this time, pouring into the connection all the confusion and unexpected tenderness he'd been accumulating. On the night before their official wedding ceremony, Valestra came to his chambers privately, something that scandalized Nyx when she discovered it, but ultimately seemed inevitable. They made love, slowly and carefully, Devon learning the geography of her indigo skin, discovering that her body responded to touch in ways both familiar and exotically different. Her hands explored him with curiosity and reverence, and when she whispered his name in that melodious voice, Devon felt something in his chest crack open. Some wall he'd maintained for so long that he'd forgotten it was there. Tomorrow, Valestra said as they lay intertwined, we will be bound before our people. But know this, Devon Cross, tonight, in this moment, I am already yours. Not because of duty or diplomacy, but because my heart has chosen you. Devon pressed his lips to her forehead, breathing in the scent of her skin, something like night-blooming flowers and ozone. And I am yours, he replied, completely and irrevocably. The wedding ceremony was extraordinary. Thousands of Karath citizens gathered in the grand amphitheater, and Devon's diplomatic colleagues attended via holographic transmission from Earth. The vows were spoken in both languages, and when Devon saw Valestra in her elaborate ceremonial dress, a creation that seemed to flow and shimmer like liquid silver, he realized he was genuinely in love with her. Not as a political necessity, not as a strategic move, but as a man falling irreversibly for a woman whose existence he couldn't imagine living without. But 3 weeks into their marriage, everything changed. It started with whispers that Nyx tried to shield him from. Then it escalated to late-night meetings that Valestra would vanish into, returning with worry etched across her elegant features. Devon finally confronted her one night, finding her standing on the palace balcony, staring out at the desert beneath a blood-red sky. What's happening? He asked, moving to stand beside her. And don't tell me it's nothing. I know you better than that. Valestra was silent for a long moment. There is a resistance faction, she finally admitted. Rebels who oppose the union between our peoples. They see you, and all that you represent, as a threat to Karath's sovereignty. They are planning something, and if I reveal it, it will create conflict between our governments. Then why tell me at all? Devon asked gently. Because I love you, Valestra said, her voice breaking slightly. And because I believe you deserve to know the danger, even if I cannot protect you from it completely. She explained then about the rebel leader Katrin, a war veteran who had lost family members in old conflicts with human explorers. Katrin had built a following among those who feared cultural assimilation, who saw the marriage between Devon and Valestra as the first step toward the erasure of Karath identity. They're planning to assassinate me, Valestra continued quietly. And when I'm gone, they'll blame humans. It will trigger retaliation from my government, and your species will be drawn into a conflict you didn't initiate. The cycle will continue until our peoples have destroyed each other. Parentheses. Devon's blood ran cold. We need to tell your government. We need to put you under protection. If I do that, the rebels will accelerate their timeline, Valestra said. Innocents will die in the resulting conflict. But if we do nothing, I will die anyway, just more slowly, as the war consumes everyone I love. Parentheses. That night, Devon made contact with Katrin through underground networks. Nyx, surprisingly helped him access. He requested a meeting, and when he arrived at the hidden resistance compound, a network of caves beneath the desert, he was unarmed and alone. Katrina was younger than he expected, no more than 30 by Earth standards, with scars visible on her arms and what appeared to be an old blaster burn across her left eye. When she saw Devon, her expression hardened into pure contempt. "The human prince," she spat. "Come to try diplomacy?" "No," Devon said calmly. "Come to understand why you want to destroy the one chance at peace our species have ever had." They talked for hours. Devon listened to Katrine's stories of loss, of watching her people suffer during the early contact period, of seeing cultural traditions disrupted by human intervention. And he realized, with painful clarity, that her anger was not baseless. Her fear was not irrational. She had legitimate grievances that no amount of diplomatic handshakes could erase. "The marriage doesn't solve anything," Katrin said finally. "It just delays the inevitable conflict." "Maybe," Devon agreed. "Or maybe it creates something neither of us expected, something worth protecting." He told Katrin about Valestra, not as a political tool, but as a person he genuinely loved. He told her about the dreams they'd shared, of a future where their species cooperated, where ancient grievances could be laid to rest, where their children could grow up without fear. "Pretty words," Katrin said, but something in her tone had shifted. "I'm not asking you to trust me," Devon said. "I'm asking you to trust Valestra. If you ever knew her before this, if you ever saw her care about her people, the way I know she does, you know she wouldn't enter into this union if she didn't believe it could be real." Katrin was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "If you're lying, I will kill you myself. If you're telling the truth, I will stand aside. But understand, there are others in this movement. I can control my faction, but not all of them." Previously, the palace and told Valestra about his meeting with Katrin. She was initially furious with him for taking such a risk. Fear replaced anger. "If the other factions learn that you've negotiated with the rebels," she said urgently, "the council will see it as a betrayal. They will demand your execution as part of maintaining my legitimacy as leader." "Then, we tell the council the truth," Devon said. "We tell them about the threat and what we've done to mitigate it." But before they could act, they received a summons to appear before the High Council. Devon knew immediately that something had gone wrong. When they entered the council chamber, Devon saw Council Member Venn standing with a group of armed guards, and his stomach dropped. Venn was elderly by Karat standards. His indigo skin darkened to almost black with age, his violet eyes cold and calculating. "Princess Valestra," he began formally, "we have received intelligence that your husband has been negotiating with rebel elements. This is a serious breach of trust." "I can explain," Devon started, but Venn cut him off with a gesture. "The circumstances are no longer relevant," Venn said coldly. "What is relevant is that the Union is now politically untenable. The people fear that human influence is compromising our security protocols. For the stability of Kareth, the marriage must be dissolved, and the human must be executed as a state traitor." Valestra went rigid beside Devon. "No," she said quietly. "That is not acceptable." "It is not your decision to make," Venn replied. "The council has voted. Unless you are willing to renounce your position as heir and accept permanent exile alongside this human, the sentence stands." Devon felt Valestra's hand grip his. He knew what she was thinking, that she could save her people by abandoning him, by choosing duty over love. It was the logical choice, the one that any leader would make. But Valestra had never been one for logic when it came to matters of the heart. "Then I renounce my position," Valestra said, her voice clear and strong. "I renounce my claims to the throne, to the council, to everything. Devon Cross is my husband, and my loyalty is to him first. If that is unacceptable, then we will leave, but we will leave together." Ven's expression twisted with anger. "You cannot renounce the throne. You are bound by birth law. I am bound by nothing except the vows I took," Valestra interrupted. "And those vows say that I choose Devon, always." Guards moved toward them, but in that moment, something extraordinary happened. The palace ground began to tremble. Alarms sounded throughout the structure, and when Devon looked at the windows, he saw the sky darkening with approaching vessels. Nyx burst into the chamber. Desperation etched across her features. "The rebel factions have attacked," she announced. "The ones that did not support the truce. They're bombing the capital city. The council needs to mobilize the defense grid immediately." The evacuation from the palace was chaos. As Kareth and human forces converged on the capital city, Devon and Valestra found themselves separated from the main transport by a bombardment that collapsed an entire section of the palace. They ended up in the underground archives with a small group of other evacuees, including, unexpectedly, Katrin and a contingent of her resistance fighters. To pause. "We can create a diversion," Katrin offered immediately, her military training activating automatically. "Get Princess Valestra and the diplomat to the neutral space station. It's far enough away that the warring factions won't risk targeting it." "You would do that?" Valestra asked, studying Katrin with visible surprise. "Yes," Katrin replied simply, "because I believe him. I believe in what you're both trying to build, and I believe that Kareth needs leaders who choose love over politics. We've had enough of the other kind." The journey to the space station was treacherous. They traveled through back passages and hidden routes that only Katrin's resistance network knew, avoiding the main battle zones. Devon and Valestra moved constantly, barely having time to speak beyond logistical necessities. But their hands remained linked, a physical reassurance that they were still together. When they finally reached the neutral station, a massive structure maintained by the Council of Multiversal Trade, they were ushered into diplomatic chambers where representatives from 17 different civilizations had gathered. The war raging on Karath Prime was becoming a crisis with far-reaching implications. In a private moment before the formal council hearing, Devon and Valestra stood together at a viewport overlooking the planet, now visible from space, its surface marked by explosions and conflict. "I've lost everything," Valestra whispered, her voice hollow. Devon turned her to face him. "No," he said firmly, "you've lost position and privilege. You haven't lost what matters. You haven't lost me, and I haven't lost you." "How is that enough?" she asked, tears streaming down her luminescent face. "It's not enough," Devon admitted. "But it's real. It's the realest thing either of us has ever chosen, and I believe that's what can change this." They entered the council chambers together, and together they presented a unified vision. Not as a princess seeking to maintain Karath's interests, and not as a diplomat seeking Earth's advantage, but as two individuals who had chosen each other and wanted to create something new, a genuine partnership between their peoples, built not on political necessity, but on the proof that different species could love, trust, and cooperate. Their testimony resonated. The Council authorized a ceasefire, and within weeks, peace negotiations began in earnest. Karath accepted external mediation, and human delegations worked with the Planetary Council to establish new governance structures that honored both cultures. 6 months later, Devon and Valestra stood in a small ceremony on the neutral station, renewing their vows before representatives of both their peoples. This time, it wasn't political necessity or ultimatum that brought them together. It was pure choice, repeated and affirmed. When they kissed, as the assembled witnesses cheered, Devon felt complete in a way he had never imagined possible. Later that night, alone in their new quarters, a blend of human and Karoth design that somehow perfectly represented their union, Devon held Valestra close. "Either you will be my husband, or," Valestra whispered against his shoulder, finishing the ultimatum she'd given him so many months ago. With a smile against his skin, "I chose right," Devon said, kissing the top of her head. "Either you will be my wife, or I would have spent the rest of my life wondering what I'd given up. But this, you and me, this impossible love we've built, this is better than any alternative." Valestra lifted her head to kiss him, and in the soft light of their quarters, with 2 moons visible through their window, and the gentle hum of the station surrounding them, Devon and Valestra understood that love had always been the right choice. It transcended species, politics, and impossible ultimatums. It was simply the truest thing in either of their universes.